Hey everybody, we gotta talk about the recent layoffs, shutdowns and project cancellations going on at Xbox. The reason for the title of the video is simple. One of the things that I've banged on in the past in this channel is that we can't solve problems in the games industry unless we actually acknowledge that they exist and actively make moves to solve them. Makes sense, right? Now, one such problem is wokeness, and I know a lot of people don't like this word. I myself don't like it very much either, but it's the easiest way to describe it. Some are already clicking off the video, maybe writing an angry comment first, etc. But if you're one of them, just bear with me here. I'm not here to rage bait anyone, I don't have time or any interest in that nonsense. I'm just here to have an open and honest discussion. And I would hope that we are at a point where we can actually do that instead of resorting to blows and insults online. Though so many people still hang on to this narrative that this issue doesn't exist. Hence why I'm even making this video to begin with. It's the point of it, really. And by the way, I'm not going to spend like 10 minutes defining this or beating around the bush trying to use different words. I think anyone who isn't purposefully being intellectually dishonest knows perfectly what this term means by now and the types of things that qualify for it. In short, it's just useless garbage like this list, which is employed by Xbox Game Studios actually, admitted and posted by themselves just last year, in a brave and stunning move to undermine and disapprove of Eve's character design in Stellar Blade during that whole controversy before launch. Seriously, pause the video if you need to and read through them, and really picture these things having to be applied to media. These are things that do nothing for nobody. They don't make for good stories, they don't make for good character design, they don't result in good character writing or lore or world building. All that they do is stand in the way of creative expression and general smooth game development. They funnel all of these aspects towards focusing on excruciatingly boring concepts and themes, if you can even call it that. And worse, it does a serious number on natural flowing dialogue between characters, character archetypes and character relationships because of those very first few lines there that hyper-fixate on making sure that everyone of every identity, every sexuality, every whatever is represented respectfully and pridefully, and that there's no chances that any dialogue or any other piece of content in the game can accidentally offend anyone. In short, these interjections on this list want to do way too many things with characters and none of them are interesting. It's all vapid, superficial nonsense. Literally the least interesting things about any characters in any stories. Their gender, their race, their sexuality and whatever other contemporary identity-driven details that they may think of adding, often for the sake of representation. It's mind-numbingly boring stuff, and 9 times out of 10 it doesn't even fit with their settings, especially hyper-fictionalized settings, which is most games, which take place far away from Earth, or in either medieval or fantasy or futuristic settings, in which representation just doesn't work the same way. And it's not just representation either, it's also product placement, for example. It's just bad content, guys. That's all that lists like these do. They're literally creative restrictions for the sake of virtue signaling and political correctness on overdrive. So now that we got that out of the way in record time, let's get back to the topic. One of my problems with this stuff isn't even that it exists. I speak for the vast majority of people when I say that we don't have problems with female leads, or characters that aren't strictly white and male, or games that explore different modern themes. The games industry is big enough for everyone and for everything. I mean, we got games about power washing pavements, climbing mountains inside of a pot with nothing but a hammer, showering with your dad, so on, so forth. So naturally, there's space for these games as well and much more. There's this notion that game journalists like to put out there, that gaming is extremely toxic and there's a lot of gatekeeping and there's people that are being pushed out of gaming, and it's just completely untrue. The problem is when developers or consultants find it fitting to force that kind of content into games and demographics that are not interested in any of it at all and that don't even mix and match with the actual franchises themselves, to the point of creating a sense of dissonance. Naturally, this causes these games to not do well, and of course that is often not the only problem that these games have, of course, 100%. They often have other issues as well. Maybe the gameplay could be a bit better, maybe the character design is ass, maybe the world looks boring, maybe the the writing and world building are weak, so on and so forth. Sometimes these issues exist outside of wokeness completely, but other times they exist because of it too. Because of these influences from these specific types of developers and consultants, like the ones on screen right now trying to literally make things political, who are so out of touch with what their games fan bases want and focus solely on what they want to feed to us ideologically. And other times, of course, because they're working with lists like the one that we just talked about, where the content itself needs to be filtered and catered by all of that bullshit, with quotas on top of that they have to meet. At which point, we can't really blame bad writing in Veilguard, for example, as it just being bad writing, or bad character design in Concord as it just being bad character design. To not connect the dots with the rest going on behind the scenes in these studios is to deny reality. Lists like those have gone to do so much more harm than good too, because we are capable of having a genuinely great game free of any activism whatsoever, and some gamers out there will now call it woke just because of a female character or whatever. Like for example, I was playing Red Dead Redemption earlier, the first one. It's one of my favorite games ever and one that I spent uncountable hours playing back in the day on my 360. I love returning to this game in the summer because it brings me great memories of my summer breaks back then playing this non-stop. And so as I was playing, I found myself so amused by Bonnie McFarlane, and then it hit me in the head like a hammer. If this game released today, some corners of the internet, gamers! Yeah, exactly, like that one, would be coming out and calling Rockstar woke now because a girl saves John Marston, nurses him to health, and sometimes playfully bosses him around as they are getting to know each other throughout the game.
So, how do you feel?
I don't know the polite word for it.
I do. Stupid is the word we use around here. What were you doing?
I was doing something stupid.
You do so love to talk in riddles, Mr. Marston. Do you do that, I wonder, as a substitute for having anything interesting to say? I understand that a city dweller such as yourself likes to have some exotic secrets, so us country folk are impressed.
I'm no city man, miss.
Yeah, but I saw you get on the train at Blackwater. You with those gentlemen in bowler hats?
I'm still no city man.
But I'll bet you can't ride, Mr. Marston.
I hate to take money from a lady, miss.
Oh, you won't be. I'll race you right now.
If it makes you happy.
We'll see.
I might just do that. Travel safely, miss.
Try not to get yourself shot. I won't be around to save you this time. I've got to get some supplies and I could do with the company.
Of course.
You can take the reins. It wouldn't do for a terrifying bounty hunter such as yourself to be seen driven around by a woman. Oh, call me Bonnie, you fool. Call me Bonnie.
And it's just goddamn sad because not only is it obviously not applicable as the game is from 2010, but it also shows that we've always had really great stories, really great characters with actual natural diversity all along. And now, because of this ideological grip on the industry, because of all this activism, all of this garbage from lists like this, we have severely damaged it. Or rather, not us, they did, as in the companies and these activists. So needless to say, I can obviously also see the problem from the other side as well sometimes. I see how callously some people run to attribute the label of woke to things that are just normal storytelling or characters. Like for example Dion in Final Fantasy XVI. I think that much like Bonnie McFarlane, Dion is a very normal and naturally written character. The most vital, detailed, and important parts about his character, much like normal people in the world or good characters in media, are his accomplishments. The fact that he is the prince of the Sambrak Empire, his combat prowess, his power as a dominant of Bahamut, and his struggles with his stepmother who has effectively invaded his empire and corrupted his father. He is a very interesting, tragic, and honorable character, and then aside from all of this, he just happens to be gay. Because sexuality is really just not that important.
For every citizen who falls, another can be bred. For every home that burns, another can be built. Those were your words. But when the last of your citizens has fallen, and all of their homes have been reduced to ash, what will become of your empire, of its rulers, of your god?
and to hyperfixate on it as a writing device or a character theme like Tash from Veilguard would land in a pointless, laughable character.
So, I'm non-binary.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care. Jerry.
This is such a massive flaw in the minds of these activists. You just don't understand just how little these things matter, just how not compelling they are as stories or characterizations, and that's why they keep failing at making good content. Sadly though, regardless of this, regardless of how well executed Dion was, there's still a lot of people out there who look at this and call it woke and refuse to play the game. But make no mistake, we are here now as a result of that totally fruitless activism. It literally resulted in nothing good, nothing productive. Stories used to be better before, character design used to be better before, writing used to be better before, and the diversity used to be much better executed before as well. Now, all we have is trash content and a damaged environment corrupted by divisiveness. And so the issue that I'm trying to get at here is that whenever a problem is derived from technical aspects, we openly talk about it and tackle the problem. But if the problem is derived from any shape or form of wokeness affecting either the game or the environment at a studio or whatever else, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to pinpoint it and admit that it's a problem. Well, again, if we don't acknowledge that a problem exists, how are we going to fix it?
What's wrong with you?
This is my biggest gripe with wokeness. It's that it's there, everyone knows it's there, but nobody wants to acknowledge its actual existence and hold it accountable as any other thing would. If somehow it was being profitable, of course everybody acknowledges it. It's profitable, look, this is what gamers want. You top the charts, right? But if it results in the opposite, everybody pretends it doesn't exist. If you say you want it gone, people who would otherwise say that you're delusional and there's nothing there, that you're just a bigot for even saying such a thing, will crawl out of the woodwork alongside gaming news media to defend it and demand that it carries on being practiced in these gaming studios and publishing companies, even when they themselves aren't gamers or aren't buying the games that these companies are making. This is a massive problem. Whenever we have a game with a broken launch, we call it out, like, hey man, what the fuck is this? You launched a broken game. And companies are prone to acknowledge it, do an apology statement, and get to work on fixing those issues in the game. Whenever a game is caked with bugs, the studios acknowledge it and get to work on fixing those bugs. Whenever a game has abysmal performance issues, that gets acknowledged as well. In come the patches trying to further optimize the game. Balancing issues in Souls games get addressed. Boring, empty game design gets addressed. Monetization is a bit tougher, but sometimes it does get addressed as well. Sometimes some studios even admit when a story is weak and say that they'll be focusing on it harder for their sequels or future games. And although rarer these days, bad character design is also sometimes acknowledged and addressed as well. But whenever a game comes out and it's riddled with unbearable ideological garbage, like Dragon Age Veilguard was, nobody wants to acknowledge that as a problem when it clearly is one, because it just doesn't resonate with gamers. The content itself just doesn't sell, certainly not to a demographic wide enough to pay for the cost of making a AAA game. It's like opening up a sports bar and trying to exclusively sell glasses of milk. Trust me, I'd know from experience. I haven't tried to open a bar, but I did go to a bar once. Bit of a cafe/bar type of place, sports themed, lots of old dudes in there, and I asked for a cappuccino sort of thing. It's not really a cappuccino, we don't have these fancy names. Basically just coffee with milk, like a latte or something, I don't know. I've never been to a Starbucks, I don't fucking know. And the guy behind the counter plus everyone else in there, you know, standing beside me at the counter and sitting at the tables, they just gave me this terrible, awful look before the guy behind the counter just said, "We don't have any milk here." It was a terrible, awful experience that I never want to go through again, and I don't understand why the games industry keeps putting itself in that position. In short, you're never going to see this type of problem getting addressed, despite the fact that it's crystal clear. If you put the first Dragon Age game, Dragon Age Origins, and its aesthetics, its writing, its directing, its themes, its presentation of the lore, the world, the battles, and its mature themes, versus the same things, but from Veilguard, it's unobjective objective truth and reality that Origins is the one that appeals to the vast majority of people. It's what people want out of a dark fantasy RPG. And it's also something totally impossible to be recreated whenever a studio wants to hyperfixate on modernized ideological garbage. Both of these things are just antithetical to one another. And I'm obviously not saying that that's its only problem. There's obviously a bunch of other issues in the game, a major one being that the game is straight up plagued by good old-fashioned, dogshit, unfitting millennial-style writing. But you know what really doesn't help? When you look up the lead writer and you find out that they are a 100% certified Wookiee with custom pronouns in the bio and everything, and an inability to separate their politics from their work. And of course the same applies to people like this, going on GDC and making panels about how to politicize their video games. So then a very legitimate question is immediately formed. Is it also not wokeness as a concept when people who are very likely incompetent and unfit to work on a certain video game get to work on that certain video game and be given full leeway to allow their real-life political and ideological obsessions to cross over into their work in the game? Without any supervisor in the studio or any higher up from the company coming down and going, oh hey, maybe it's not such a good idea to put these themes into this game, maybe they don't fit, maybe they don't resonate with people, maybe this should just get removed or replaced. After all, if you can't let go of that side of yourself when doing such meaningful and important work, how are you going to be able to keep it out of your work? And this isn't even meant out of disrespect or as an attack or anything on this aspect, because I understand that some people are able to separate it very well, others not so much. It's very normal to hone in on things that interest you in your work, like for example, if the god of grifting came down from the heavens and appeared to me, telling me, Decembro, gaming is not profitable content. The real money is in sports. Make sports videos. And then poofed into a cloud of smoke, I would be straight up cooked because I don't like sports. It's just not my thing. I can't stop thinking about video games. I would be reacting to a game, watching Cristiano Ronaldo do a bicycle kick, and I'd start rambling about how EA is a shit company because they totally killed fun sports games like Football Madness and FIFA Street, only to make the same pile of garbage with a roster update since like 2012 now. Stupid example, but you get my point. It's just sad that to some people, the things that are most valuable to them, most interesting, most engaging, most rewarding, etc. are not hobbies, interests, or activities, and are instead just identity politics. And it's not that these people can't work in the industry, I never suggested any such thing. It's simply that you can't take something like Dragon Age and turn it into something awful just because to you and your bubble on Blue Sky, that's the bombest shit ever. We gotta be realistic with demographics and fan bases, and with who's making our games. Like for example, we have to be realistic that if you're going to make an RPG, maybe what you need ahead of your project is a huge fucking nerd. And we also have to stop being so sick-minded that we seriously consider that this ideological stuff has to be woven into every big franchise in some way, shape or form because it looks ridiculous. Sometimes some games just have to be dark, simple as that. We don't have time for, oh but what if, or oh wouldn't this be nicer. No, just make it dark, make it gritty, make it awful in the best way possible. Because right now, ridiculousness is the only thing that you can extract from this. I think it should be honestly a category at the Game Awards, like for example, most ridiculous character, and then options would be a non-binary character in fantasy, courtesy of Dragon Age, versus a non-binary character in feudal Japan, courtesy of Assassin's Creed, so on and so forth. I know Jeff Keighley's not going to do it, but hey, maybe the real Game Awards will. Someone send a clip to Stuttering Crag or Blabs. And by the way, I saw some comments mad at me in a previous video saying that I'm ignorant for saying that non-binary people did not exist in feudal Japan and referencing the Wakashu. The Wakashu were not non-binary. This is a modern contemporary term that exists today. And the very concept of the Wakashu have nothing to do with non-binary as we know it today. We're literally talking about young men, literally men, who just happen to be more effeminate and not stick directly to traditional Japanese gender roles at the time. They were still men though. There was no infinite gender spectrum or a denial of their gender. This is just a thing that people like this like to do nowadays, where they take something that vaguely relates to them or represents them and appropriate it. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work that way. The concept of non-binary as we know it now is unique to us. Taking Wakasho and appropriating it would be like taking tomboys, who are women, who have no issue at all with being women, but who just happen to not stick to a traditional female gender role, and calling them non-binary as well, when they are not. So in short, if you want to make content like this, go for it, but make it for games and demographics where that makes sense. Otherwise, this vicious cycle will just keep going on and on and on, where developers feel like crap because their games fail and then they get fired. And then some of them, plus the game's media, turn around and place the blame on the gamers for not forcing themselves to buy something that they're just plainly not interested in. No hate, no nothing, just no interest. So that's one of my biggest gripes with this stuff. If we can't acknowledge it as a problem, we can't solve it. It'll just keep going and more studios will get shut down alongside mass layoffs, as we're seeing right now across various teams that belong to Xbox, in a continuous decline that is going on now for about 3 years. Turn 10 Studios, ZeniMax Media, multiple Call of Duty studios, Blizzard Entertainment, Halo Studios, The Initiative, alongside the cancellation of Perfect Dark, which was in development for like 6 or 7 years now. Tango Gameworks was also nuked last year alongside a game. Rare also went through layoffs and got Everwild cancelled, so on and so forth, man. Things are not looking good at Xbox. And there's no doubt at all that much more goes into this than just the subject matter of this video, of course, 100%, but that core problem remains there. See, I could make an entire video talking about various other issues going on at Xbox. In fact, I did. I have been purposely staying away from talking about this culture war-centric stuff for a couple of months now because I noticed the fatigue around it. I noticed that people don't want to hear about it all the time, so I've been trying to diversify and talk about other things. I made a video on why I believe the Game Pass is ushering an age of slop across Xbox, where their games are going to continue losing quality by being enabled to do so because of falling onto the safety net that is the Game Pass. Some people ended up thinking that I'm against the service itself, but they're mistaken. I mean, I did address this at the very start of that video, but you know, what are you gonna do? I'm against the money-driven ideology of Game Pass, because that's the direction that Xbox has been going to. Just wanting to push the damn subscription on everyone, making it everything. Literally making the damn Game Pass the entire Xbox brand, to the point of even using the concept of hiking up the game prices to $80 and then presenting the Game Pass like, hey guys, yeah, the games are pricey and we don't even do physical copies anymore, but look, you can play it day one with Game Pass. I still don't understand how some people are stupid enough to not see right through this. I mean, make it make sense. The market conditions for these publishers are so terrible that apparently $70 isn't enough for a fucking digital game anymore. But hey, look, we'll give it to you for free if you simply pay $18 for this service. Seriously, are these people retarded?
Probably, Miss McFarlane.
Anyway, I made a video on that too. And I could have made a video on how stupid the Activision acquisition was and how much damage it has done to Xbox. But the thing is that all of these things are things that everyone is talking about. Everyone calls these things out. These are safe opinions to have. You can scour all of social media and everyone is calling Xbox out, hating on Phil Spencer, calling Microsoft evil, saying Microsoft sucks and ruins everything, like even big creators like the Actman. Pretty much everyone is on this boat except the Omega shills like these fellas right here that Chris Avellone himself called out. By the way, if you don't know Chris Avellone, he's basically an industry legend responsible for great design and writing across gems like Fallout, KOTOR, Neverwinter Nights, New Vegas, Prey, and a few others. He called out shill journalists like Jez Gordon and Clobrile or whatever, according to whom everything is always fantastic. Everything is always doing great. The games are great, the hardware's great, Game Pass is great, the acquisitions are doing great or are going to be greatly beneficial. Fucking everything is always just great. We'll be talking about the responsibility that game journalists like these and others have on mass layoffs like the ones happening right now, but that's for another day. Basically, everyone already talks about all of these corporation bad and high game price bad topics because it's safe and easy, and nobody wants to shine the light on other more uncomfortable problems going on, such as the list that I just showed at the start of the video, or consultant companies like Sweet Baby Inc. who worked on some Xbox titles, or developers like these passing through the screen right now who worked on Xbox Studios making Xbox games. Like, this stuff is not normal. These are not people with healthy mentalities, and they often damage the very games that they're working on by spazzing out online like this and attacking the very people who they're supposed to be selling games to. This guy right here, for example, was working on The Initiative, on the Perfect Dark game. Both the studio and the game are now gone, and he's got his own fair share of unhinged comments online that just showed these unnatural, hateful obsessions towards gamers. Here he's calling people racist pigs for pointing out the clear example of racism, hypocrisy, and ridiculousness in blackwashing a character from Norse mythology and culture in God of War Ragnarok, alongside more virtue signalistic cringe like, oh, this is without a doubt the most interesting character. The damn game hadn't even come out yet, why is she the most interesting? Just cause she's black? Deriving interest and value from skin color? I don't know, that doesn't sound very good, man. And spoiler alert for 2018 God of War, if you somehow haven't played it yet, at the end of the game we see a mural foretelling a grim future where Kratos is dying in his son's arms. Alongside this tidbit of information, Atreus is also revealed to be Loki, Thor and Odin had also been teased and revealed, and in 2018's game we kill Thor's sons, and we also kill Odin's son Balder. In fact, we have a vision where Thor shows up at Kratos' house. These are the events that people were excited and interested to see in the sequel. Not Angrboda, she wasn't even mentioned in the first game. On another post we have him coping about non-existent bullshit when upset gamers see a woman as the main character in a video game. My boy, female characters have been in video games for decades, and when they're done well, games share nothing but love for them. Reminds me of that clip from Jennifer Lawrence, I think it was, who said that she was the first female lead in an action movie. Some people that get too hung up on these things really do genuinely believe that they're changing the world, that they're the only ones to be doing something that has already existed since forever. And then on this one, we have him saying that gaming is for everyone except bigots. You know, it's not even that bad of a phrase, like I wouldn't get that hung up on this, but then if you check what does he mean by bigots, he means over half of the entire goddamn country. Basically, agree with me and bend over to my super far left takes and beliefs, or you are a bigot and you don't deserve to touch my games. Well, mission accomplished, I guess. Now nobody is going to touch his game. Like, this is a reality inside of these big companies that nobody wants to talk about. Well, I say nobody, but of course there's several other content creators who do it. It's just that, as a general rule, we all get swept up under this big rug and labeled as bigots or grifters or whatever for just pointing out this stuff and continuously wondering when is it ever going to be addressed. There's a lot of bloat in these studios, and that's also another point that people generally find safe to talk about as long as it's being kept vague. Because a part of admitting that these companies have bloat is accepting the fact that layoffs need to happen. Now, this doesn't mean that people have to celebrate the layoffs in the sense of celebrating that a bunch of people just lost their jobs. This obviously is mean-spirited, and anyone who's had their livelihoods in a tight position knows very well how much this sucks. But yeah, sometimes people do still celebrate layoffs because of what they signify, which is a company admitting that there's a problem and trying to remedy that problem, which is so rare these days. Like, for example, EA identifying that Dragon Age Veilguard's writers did a god-awful job and should probably not stick around to work on Mass Effect, unless they want another failure in their hands. Sadly though, they still fucked it up afterwards anyway by determining that the failure was thanks to the game being single player instead of a live service.
What are you, fucking stupid?
This dichotomy is what makes talking about bloat be a bit sensitive. People like to talk about it in the abstract. I like to talk about it as a whole, even if I may come off as insensitive. It just is what it is. In a perfect world, companies like Xbox and many others across the AAA industry would have never bloated themselves in the first place with a bunch of people that are just hands down completely arbitrary, if not downright useless in the production of a video game, which means that these layoffs wouldn't have to happen. This is why game journalists don't like to talk about bloat and hate whenever we talk about Sandfall Games, who managed to make such a fantastic game with just around 30 developers. They show what is perfectly possible in this industry, what more studios across AAA should be able to do as well, and with far better money management. They hate it because they don't want to admit these harsh realities. They want to keep the status quo going, a status quo of gaming studios that barely even look like gaming studios anymore because they're caked with departments that they don't need, that provide shit that nobody wants. The sad thing is that these layoffs are ultimately a good thing, although there's always a caveat, which is the fact that if they're firing the right people, getting rid of the unnecessary bloat that plagues these studios, including the top people who created these departments and put these people in there in charge in the first place, effectively bleeding the company dry, then great, that's good. But if they're firing the wrong people, good, useful, talented people while retaining utterly useless departments whose output is shit like this, and while also retaining those top people in charge of making or enabling these decisions and subsequently this decline, then that's terrible, and it only ensures that we got more layoffs, shutdowns and cancellations coming soon. And that really sucks. And I made this video because this was immediately the first thing that started cropping up online, with posts like this from Razorfist, for example, claiming that Perfect Dark's rumors about the game being a 20-hour enviro-feminist screed was true. They saw what happened to Veilguard and Concord and apparently they dipped. I have no idea if this is true or not. Honestly, it doesn't sound like it. I think it's a little bit too far-fetched, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. I'm more inclined towards the possibility that gameplay that we saw last year was all bullshit. Just a big vertical slice fantasy scripted and specifically made to look like that, but without it actually being what the game currently looked like in progression at the studio. Which, with like 6 years of development, is obviously a very bad situation. Like a game like this, 6 years should have been more than enough to have it done. And so if that's the case, it could be that it got cancelled because the developers wasted a lot of time, money and resources and came up so extremely short that it was more viable to just shut everything down, close the studio, cancel the game than anything else. And I got this comment as a reply to my post about this. Gameplay from last year was just a vertical slice. There never was any 20-hour enviro-feminist game at all. Razorfist is making shit up to sell his audience the illusion that they are winning an imaginary culture war. And again, like I just said, I get it. Like, we don't know for sure if this is the case, so of course I'm not going to make any claims about it, but what I don't like is that last line, an imaginary culture war. This is a sentiment shared by many over the past few days, coming out to shut down the grifters talking about Xbox's issues with wokeness. According to people like this is all still imaginary. Shit like that list doesn't exist. Apparently I pulled it out of my ass. People like the developers we just showed, they totally don't exist either. None of this does. Consultants who want to take over the industry, games caked in ideological garbage, these people over here from GDC, the panels that they talk about over there, the World of Warcraft garbage that we just saw a few days ago, etc. Forget about it, guys. It's not there. The last 4 to 5 years have just been a fever dream, apparently. On a serious note, it is staggering to me how we can be in the middle of 2025 and this narrative of this shit not existing or not mattering is still alive and well. It's just insane. And that's why I made this video. It's why I will continue making them whenever relevant. I understand how toxic it is to discuss these matters. I understand how fatigued people are of this, including myself. Like we just covered a few days ago, Jeremy's crash out from the quartering, how his views are in decline because people just aren't tuning into his lazy ass reading articles on the culture war. Believe me, I know how tiring this is, especially when the content is pure slop without any thought or nuance or discussion. But clearly, we still need to keep talking about it, because we're still living in a reality where this is not being addressed. The problem isn't that people point out all of these other issues plaguing Xbox, you know, the pricing, the slop, the Game Pass, the crazy acquisitions, etc. The problem is people will deliberately either pretend like quote-unquote wokeness is imaginary, or straight up defend it as something that is positive and profitable for the company. This has to change if this industry is to actually get better by either finding a way of making peace with reality that this doesn't sell in the mainstream market and adapt it into something else smaller in its own niche, or rooting it out altogether and then dealing with it later. Or whatever else. Honestly, I just want the problem to be addressed as a problem so we can start seeing solutions to said problem. Sometimes it's not even that these elements can create good, compelling stories, it's that the people behind writing them are hot garbage. But nobody wants to fire them either because they're a protected class of some kind. Or because layoffs are always meant to be bad. But yeah, anyway, that's about all that I had to say with this video. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns and commentary, and let me know your thoughts down below. I don't think I'm being unreasonable when I talk about these things, it's just that everything is so extreme nowadays that you can't even just have a dialogue about these things. It's such a sensitive topic that it just blows up into craziness. But either way, I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.